Something else I just need to mention is you'll notice that there's some filming and photographing going on today. That's for those publicity reasons for the Students' Union, so just to warn you that there's some photography taking place. If we can move on, because we've got quite a lot to get through today. The first thing that's happening today on the agenda is Madeline Atkins, who's Vice Chancellor of the University, is going to talk to us. So if you come in late, come in quietly please, and take your seats quietly, that'd be very helpful. So if I can hand over to Professor Madeline Atkins, Vice Chancellor.
I think we're all vertically challenged. There we go. So good afternoon everyone, and thank you Val and thank you Ryan for this opportunity. Just to say a few words about the excellent Students' Union that we have here and the importance of the relationship between the university and the Students' Union. I always say when I talk to parents and potential students at open days, and some of you will have heard me speak on those Saturday mornings, that the Student Union is a vital part of this university and of the experience of you as students while you are here. First and foremost, the Student Union gives us, as the so-called management of the university, it reflects to us your voice, your concerns, what isn't going as well as it should be going for you, what the issues are, what could be improved. And that's done primarily through the rep system, which the Student Union here runs extremely well. And I hope that we respond as the university to the raising of those concerns with speed and effectiveness. It really is important for us to keep that student interest at the heart of what we do, and part of that is achieved by the reps on courses, by the reps in our halls of residence, by the reps for the professional services. So, first point, my thanks to everybody here who is a rep and who has stood for election to that position, or who has been the last out of the room when it was going to be decided. Whatever the way of selection has been, my thanks to you, and please do keep engaged around that. Now this year, in which we've just started, this September, we're going to be working with the Students' Union on an even better initiative, I think, to hear your voice. And that is through the mechanism of what's called a commission, capital C. So we and the Students' Union together, but effectively managing it through the Students' Union, have set up this commission to see if we can understand better what your expectations are of a higher education at this point in the 21st century. What are the trends in your concerns? What are the expectations that you legitimately feel that you have? So there will be a call for evidence. This is the way that commissions work. A call for evidence coming out to each and every one of you before Christmas. There will be the opportunity to come before the commission and give oral evidence after Christmas, and a final report which will come back to the Student Union and also to the Board of Governors after Easter. So, for example, we would like you to think about the student support services that we have here. Are they the right ones now? Should they evolve? Are there some gaps in the provision of student support that we ought to be filling? And then what about technology? How could we use technology better to support your learning, or indeed make the teaching that we do more effective? And what about those social spaces for learning? Have we got those right? Or again, should we be thinking more cleverly, in a more forward-looking way, about the trends in the ways that you want to learn informally outside of the classroom itself? So a number of topics like that, we'll be asking you for your views and for evidence to come in, handled through the Students' Union as a joint commission. The second point I'd like to make about the Student Union and the relationship between the Student Union and the university is around the social life of the campus, because it's hugely important. And of course the Student Union is responsible for your clubs and societies, the social events that happen through the week and at weekends. And I've been really struck over the last few years at the growth in the number of societies that we now have on campus. And just to say, this morning talking to Ryan, I hear we've now got some new ones again from the first year students coming into the university, which is terrific. And also delighted that over the last few years we've climbed up the Bucks League tables for sport. So if you're one of the students running a society as president or treasurer or secretary, our thanks to you for doing that. And similarly, if you're playing in one of our teams, or if you are an individual sportsman or sportswoman and participating in the Bucks system, again, our thanks for your commitment. In return, we have now increased the funding to the Students' Union, both to allow a separate sabbatical officer to look after the societies, which I think is really very important, but also recently to add to the coaching and equipment and other costs involved in sports clubs to try and make sure that you are well represented and that you've got what you need to play to the best level. So let's hope that in the course of this year we climb back into the top 50 on the Bucks League. I know we're all aligned with that intention. Last point about the role that Students' Union play with a small p political is of course one that you will be discussing today in some of the motions, and that is that the union represents your views to government through the NUS to which it is affiliated. And Dom, I know, is here today as a guest, as I am, at this meeting, and will be talking to you, I'm sure, a bit more about the way that the NUS is currently thinking and the way in which it's seeking to engage with you. From my point of view as the Vice-Chancellor, of course, we've been through a period of considerable concern expressed in the student body about the fees and loan system, which we now have in England, and I suspect that over the next few years, some of that agenda will remain quite live, particularly after the next election as we go into a new government. So here again, I'm delighted that there is a level of participation and debate in this university that takes these issues seriously. And for those of you who stand for election for sabbatical officer, well done. I think that that is a very important part of reflecting the views and thinking about these hugely important issues in our society. Last point is about volunteering. One of the fantastic jobs that the Students' Union does here is basically to handle the volunteering that students do out in our location, our communities around us, and indeed further afield internationally. So those of you who are volunteering in local schools and in sports clubs connected to youth engagement, thank you very much indeed. You really are role models for that next generation of young people. By being with you, by talking to you, by watching you and your example, you do raise their aspirations. They begin to think, maybe I could go to university as well. And certainly as you look into the economic future of this country, we need more people going to university, acquiring those high-level skills and that advanced knowledge. And for the young people themselves, they will have many more opportunities in their lives if they have gone down that path. And then a lot of you also volunteer in social care environments, looking after and supporting some of the most vulnerable people that we have in the communities around us and their families, often in very difficult circumstances. And through the volunteering that you do, you make a point about the importance of a university as, if you like, an anchor institution in its community. Hugely valuable work, often not celebrated in the local press, for example. You get lots of stories about students making noise and difficulties in relationships in the community, but actually there is this other really, really important story to tell around that volunteering. And our contribution to social well-being, as well as to economic prosperity, is a very deep part of our mission as a university. So a huge thanks to you as well for doing that work. Often difficult, requires a completely different kind of commitment, and it's one that you do extremely well. So from my point of view, in conclusion, I'd just like to say thank you for being a fabulous student body, of which, as the Board of Governors and the senior management in the university, we are enormously proud. We always say if we're having a difficult day at work, the thing to do is to go down to the hub and talk to some of our students, and then we understand why we're here, and that real commitment and interest and vibrancy that you bring makes our jobs very worthwhile indeed. I'd also like to give my thanks to the Students' Union and to celebrate effectively being one of the top 10 students' unions in the country. We are also immensely proud of that. From me, which this will be my last time addressing the student body here, I would just like to end by saying every good wish to each and every one of you for successful careers and a great personal life as well. Thank you very much for your attention.
She's not getting away with it that easy. Would you like to come back up, Madeline? Madeline's...
I've got to do an interview with Source Radio.
Probably. Well, as you all know, Coventry has gone up massively in all the tables, and it does help that the Students' Union works with the university on all of these, and it's great that we have a Vice-Chancellor that does take an interest in the Students' Union, and in particular the students as well. A lot of universities, Vice-Chancellors, don't actually have the time and patience, I'd say, that Madeline has with us. So as a leaving gift before Madeline becomes Chief Executive of HEFCE, we'd like to thank her on behalf of all the students here and on behalf of Council and Executive. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, we're going to move on to some of the more formal things that we have to do at this meeting now. And the first of those is to have a look at the auditor's accounts for the Students' Union and the annual report. And if I can hand over to Ross, I think he's going to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Val. Hi to everybody. Just to give you a bit of knowledge really, my name's Ross. I'm your Communications and Commercial Officer for the Student Union. And as Val said, I'm going to run you through the finances. So obviously we're a registered charity and company. Our annual accounts are audited for CUSU and CUSU Services Limited. And this is done in order to provide fair and accurate accounts to our stakeholders, which is obviously you. CUSU Services Limited, just so you're clear on that, is a trading subsidiary of the charity, and basically what that does is it operates to generate surplus, which in turn is reinvested into the charity once again. The accounts of the two companies are consolidated and brought together overall, so we've got CUSU Limited, which is the charity, and Services Limited, which is the trading arm of the charity, which come together to bring you the annual report. And the accounts give the income and expenditure for the year as well as the reserves. The financial year is from August 2012 to July 2013, and the full audited accounts will be available on cusu.org, which is obviously our website. So, income for 2012-2013. Our first income is the university grant. We also have other grants and income from trading. Trading is from marketing and advertising, clothing sales, and the bar, which is Hush, our venue. Our university grant for 2012-2013 was £780,000, which was paid in 4 instalments throughout the year. We have other grants, which include the internationalisation project, which was £100,000 last year. We had the Phoenix Sport grant, which was £79,000, and a grant from the Home Office for £5,000. And our other income was around about £99,000 from our Advantage modules that we delivered. So, trading income. Our marketing and advertising generated £34,000. Hush sales and tickets, £665,000. And others, from freshers, NUS Extra, clothing, amounted to £179,000, which gave us a gross profit of £20,000. And with our expenditure of £198,000, the net loss for the year was £177,000. But considering that, we had to pay for the building itself, for Hush itself, and health and safety concerns meant we couldn't open until November 2012, which lost us a great percentage, estimated around about 30 to 40% of our annual revenue. So, the charity overall, so this is Kusu Limited, the income for the year was £1,005,000. The expenditure was £1,008,000. So the net bottom line, as it says up there, was a deficit of £3,000. So moving on to the bottom line, the consolidated accounts for CUSU and CUSU Services Limited were brought together, as I say. The overall deficit for the year was £180,000, but it's key to stress that's not an operational loss, because it includes the costs incurred, as I said previously, of Hush, the refurbs we've had, the conversion we had to make it, because obviously it was slip hall beforehand, the rent and the rates, and its depreciation over a 7-year lease, which is around about £30,000 a year. The reserves at year end, as it says up there, well, it doesn't say up there, was £618,000. So, in terms of all these numbers, what does this mean? Our challenges for the year ahead is to increase in grant funding to £850,000 and an earmarked extra grant of £32,000 for sports clubs. We need to look at, obviously, improving what we do with it. And for Hush itself, we're aiming to break even and keep spending within our budgets for the year. And we have to obviously keep our reserves policy in line with the Charity Commission guidelines. Does anybody have any questions on a lot of numbers I've just thrown at you? Yeah?
30,000 depreciation over 7 years,
Yep.
is that a debt that actually worked out from depreciation in the area, or is that just an estimate?
It's a roundabout estimate. But again, as I say, through the lease, through the using the building, so on and so forth, it does depreciate. So we've forecast that as a roundabout, £30,000. We'll wait for you to get a mic, mate. Yeah?
Hi, my name is Tony Morris. I'm the second student counselor at CUSU. I'm just wondering whether that expenditure over the next year will include continuing to improve accessibility both at Hush and at the Hub.
Well, when you consider our expenditure, obviously we've got to consider our stakeholders, which is obviously you as students. If you feel that's an issue, obviously you're part of council yourself, Toby, and any of you have any issues that you feel are important and a priority for us to deal with on campus, you can bring them to our council meetings and we can look at how we can develop those policies for you as our stakeholders. Any other questions?
Yeah, welcome, Mr. I'm just a suggestion, maybe someone can better take out the figure before now, so that I can be better position to really ask questions. It's a lot of figure. We can look at it in a few seconds and I want to ask questions again. So if also someone can do have it, see it before our time.
Oh. Sorry, try that again.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, it would be better if you have the video beforehand. It's a lot of video, you can look at it for 15 seconds and you want to raise questions on it. So if we have like 24 hours before the meeting, we'll be able to look at it. So we'll be in a position to ask questions.
That's true. Amen. That's true.
A very sound point. Guys. Right, okay. That's a very valid point. I do appreciate it. Yeah, you've got the headlines here. Basically what they tell you is what is happening and what is happening generally. As I say, it's all available on the website. There'll be more information on the website as it becomes available. And yeah, we can look to improve that for future meetings, and we can, yeah, as I say, we can look to improve that to make sure that you have the best possible idea of what is happening. Yep, thank you.
That summary. I can assure you with all the trustees that these figures have been looked at in great detail by a number of different levels of the organisation, so they have been scrutinised. I need to ask for a formal vote of approval for you as an organisation to accept the accounts. So those in favour of accepting the accounts, please raise your hands now. So you raise your hands and hold them still, please, yeah? Anybody against accepting the accounts, raise their hands now, keep them up for me, no? Okay. As chair, it's up to me whether we need to have a count or not in any of the votes that we take today. And clearly, I think everybody would agree in that vote it was overwhelmingly in favour of accepting the accounts. So we voted to accept the accounts. Thank you very much. Okay, the next formal step in the meeting is to look at QSU affiliations, and Matt Stone, who's the Sport and Wellbeing Officer, is going to talk to us about those.
So here are all the organisations that QSU are affiliated with. To comply with our transparency policy, we present these to the students each year to make sure that we are working with the correct partners. So I'll just go through the list. Advice Services Coventry, Advice UK, Amateur Boxing Association, Association of Managers and Students' Unions, British Cheerleading Association, British Judo, British Mountaineering Council, British Universities American Football League, British Universities Karting Championship, British Universities Snow Sports Council, British Universities College Sport, Citizens Advice, England Basketball, Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, Inland Revenue, Jitsu Foundation, London Advice Services Alliance, Midlands Rugby League, the Motion Picture Licenses Company, National Association of Student Money Advisors, National Pub Watch, the National Council of Voluntary Organisations, the National Union of Students in US, the Phonographic Performance Limited, Rugby Football Union, Rugby Football League, the British American Football Association, Football League Association, which is the FA, UK Council for International Student Affairs, Unite, Volleyball England, Voluntary Action, Volunteering England, Warwickshire Boxing Association, Willenhall Advice Centre, and the WTF Taekwondo Society. Any questions about any of those affiliations? Thank you.
Okay, the next point today is our keynote speaker, who's Ryan Beasley, who most of you know already, is the Democracy and Campaigns Officer for the Student Union.
Okay, I only wrote this last night, so bear with me. Students of Coventry, staff and guests, I'd like to welcome you all firstly to the all-student meeting. And today I want to talk to you about why we struggle to crack the Student Leadership Code and how you can take ownership of your own future. So to begin, I'm going to take you back 3 years ago when I first started getting involved with the Students' Union. I had no idea what a Students' Union was, what it was about. I occasionally played football for them and wrote for the newspaper. In my final year, I became sports editor of the newspaper to gain some extra experience alongside my journalism course. The following year, I ran for election, not because I cared about students, if I'm going to be honest. That's changed before you start shouting at me. But it's because I simply wanted to change the newspaper. There was a particular thing that I wanted to change. I thought this newspaper is a bit rubbish. And I really wanted to change that, so I thought getting involved with the Students' Union was my way of doing that and getting some extra experience. I had no idea what being a sabbatical officer would entail. I had no idea that I'd be a trustee of a charity, or I'd sit on the board of governors, and that I'd make decisions that would affect over 24,000 students. Now, a year later, I'm standing here delivering a speech about leadership to a room full of leaders yourselves, and I'm discussing policy and politics. I've never really been a political person, and I know a lot of you would say that you're not political. Well, you're wrong. If you care about the way sport is run at our university or in books, or if you care about how your course is taught, or you care that the government plan to privatise student loans and put millions of students in financial danger, then you are political. You have a view on something. The problem is you don't realise that you're political. The problem is you don't realise that you can be that change. You don't realise that you can lead others. You can all be leaders. This is a massive problem for us. We do have a lot of leaders here today, which is great, but this is only about 500 out of 24,000 students. And how many of you are happy to stay as you are? How many of you want to become presidents rather than just players of a sports club? Or faculty chairs rather than just course reps? How many of you actually want to progress? How many of you will run for our positions next March so you can be sitting here? Me! I like this guy. How many of you actually want to run for our positions so that volunteering and reps and sports teams and societies can all continue for the future, so that the next generation of students can enjoy the experiences that all of you have had at Coventry University? We need to motivate students and get them excited about taking on these roles. We need to show students the benefits of leading others, how it can improve their leadership skills, their employability, and make them grow as a person. But this is easy for you guys. I mean, you're already here, you're already engaged with what we're doing. You're already focused. Leadership is something that we only recognise once students themselves have already brought themselves forwards. We currently have nothing in place to support and encourage those students who have the potential to become the leaders that you are. We don't have a sufficient system which leaders can be found, and we can create a timeline. So we do have our first year Ryan Beasleys who just want to write for the newspaper, then standing up here. We have your Matt Stones and your Ross and your Chidham and everyone else stand there, and all of you in here. So you've got all of you going from being at the very basic level to coming up and being president of your sports club and president of your society, and maybe even one day a sabbatical officer. We especially need to encourage our liberation groups. I always remember something that NUS President Tony Pearce said in one of her first speeches. She said, "We can't be what we can't see." Now for me, this means that we cannot aim to represent women when you underrepresent yourself by not standing in elections. We cannot pledge to represent international students or disabled students, LGBT, ethnic and cultural, or postgraduate students if you do not make your own voice heard. With equal opportunities and the right support, and the will to realise that you are the leaders of tomorrow, we can continue to shift Coventry further up the tables and into the future. I want everyone in here to take a seriously look at yourself and who you represent. Who do you lead? What do you want your legacy to be? It's your education. If not for your friends, be a leader of your own future. Make your mark, make a difference, and make yourselves proud, and be that change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, so the next session is something that Ryan is very keen to have on the agenda, and I'm not sure everybody was quite so keen to have on the agenda as Ryan. And this is something that came out of an NUS meeting that Ryan was at recently, and where they had an accountability session. So people from NUS took any questions at all from the floor about any aspect of their work. And I say Ryan was very, very keen that we brought this into this meeting today. So for the next few minutes, what we're going to do is open up the floor to you to ask any of your sabbatical officers that are sitting here at the front any questions that you want. Okay? So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, can you raise your hands?
Last year I brought up some advantage module being 2 hours long. This is going on and on. I just think it's Yeah, I just don't think it's that advisable for students in their third year to have the branch modules that have 2 hours long over one term instead of 1 hour over 2 terms. I just want to know, after everyone in my branch module last year brought it up, why it's sort of not being.
I think we got the gist of that question, thank you. I'm sorry the microphone's picking out on you at the end. I don't know if any of the executives do want to comment on that, if you want me to comment. Yeah. Was that you?
How many courses? Yeah.
I'm currently doing intermediate Japanese.
Okay.
So, what I would say as chair is the session is to ask about accountability of student union matters, and I'm not sure that the student union can fix that. I think it's probably more of a university matter. I think probably what you're asking is it possible for the student union to lobby the university about that perhaps? Yeah? Yeah, so we can take that as a point that, you know, students are worried about that, we can take that as a point we can take forward. Are there any questions for the executive, please?
Yeah, hi. I just wondered how the union can support students who have got children and during semesters which affect holidays. So this year alone, already have.
This year anyway, I've got to this lectures have been told that I can't attend because I haven't got adequate childcare. And with the money that we receive as students, there's no way I've got 3 kids at home that I can afford to place them in childcare.
Okay, I know not all of you can hear that, so I'll summarise if I can for everybody. The lady was saying that with children, because the university now semesterised, it affects the holidays more and it's costing her a lot of money in childcare that obviously, as a student, is difficult.
I would like to firstly answer that on a broader scale. Children have set up some forums which are particular groups and have particular needs. So international students will have a very different experience to home students, whereas students who have dependencies will have a very different experience to someone who's 18-year-old and still living at home. So what I would seriously suggest is these forums are highly regarded by the university. This is what we do for a feedback system to work with the university. Because semesterisation is something that the university do, it's not something that the student union could have things to change, but it is something that the pressure on the university to do. And I think the best way to do that is speak to the children, our representation welfare officer, work with the other students who are in a similar position to you, and then we can put pressure on the university to solve these issues. Because, I mean, I've chatted to you quite a lot of times, and the problem that I have personally is that I don't have children who I have to look after, so I can't fully understand your needs, which is very difficult for me to understand that. But I think if you come along to these and sort of share your experiences, feed that back to us, and then it's up to us then to follow that on.
Okay, got another question over here, I think.
Hi. Back in my first year, we had a vote about whether or not to expand the sports centre from current facility size and out into the car park and across. I know you guys weren't in power at the time, but you must have heard something about plans for expansion because the gym and the facilities are still overcrowded, and this was raised 3 years ago when I started here.
If I can look at that again, obviously the student union budget unfortunately doesn't run to pay for the extension, as you know, yeah? So again, that's a university matter. But I think again, it comes down to the same answer as we had for the first question of, if you think it's important, we need to lobby and get the student union lobbying the people in the university who can make those choices.
The vote 3 years ago was actually because the university asked us to union tickets to one of the bigger gym. We said yes, the vote was overwhelming, yet no progress has been made. I'm asking accountability here from my student reps. What is happening? Why is the gym not bigger? Why is the facility
Because I wasn't in power there. Yes, it's our office this year, and now if it's raised again, I can guarantee 100%, not that it will happen, but I will definitely feedback what we can do about it. Because, again, I said that quite sarcastically, that I wasn't confident. I wasn't, and to be fair, 3 years ago, like I said in my speech, I really didn't know what student union was. If you could just expand a bit on that.
Obviously, we all like a sports centre. I think anyone in the room like who loves sports like our sports centre and it's a bit bigger. We don't have a problem in the city centre campus, so there's not enough room. We are trying to improve by going out to community and use community clubs. It's not the answer right now, but we're doing our best to improve facilities for sports clubs and recreational sport. Again, we put pressure on the university to put money into the sports centre, but we don't have money to build on it.
Not to really long about it, because this was 3 years ago when the university said funding was going to be there and we decided everyone to spend it in one place or the other. And I know it's not the SU's responsibility to build the gym, and I know it's not your responsibility to make sure the university does, but I thought as it was initially raised by the SU, that you guys would be a bit more proactive and continually give us feedback about where this facility is coming from. Because we have this great gym down here that's been abandoned by the university, and it's only used by us now. I mean, why isn't the facility spread out more? I mean, you've got the space, you've got the roof, you've got the materials and the equipment. Why don't you open another gym somewhere else on campus?
Okay, I think we need to move on. I think you made a very good point. It's nice to see students being passionate about this. And as head of sports science, I was on your side, so just to stress that. So I think we need to move on. I think we've made it clear that this has been raised as an issue, and that this is an issue some of you have got quite a lot of empathy with, so we'll be taking that forward as an exec, I'm sure. Okay, I think there's just one last question here. We'll move on.
Hi. I was told about an NUS bringing up an issue about zero tolerance sexism policy on campus.
I was told. I was told that there was going to be a zero tolerance sexism policy brought on by the NUS. They were organising it, and I was just wondering what we were doing to enforce that. And I was told that it was going to be coming to the university.
Children's got an answer. Wait a second.
Thank you, John, for the question. It's one of the things that we are implementing this year, zero tolerance to sexism and sexual harassment. In our women forum that we held in October, it's one of the campaigns that we'll be doing, hopefully by next year, but it's something that we are taking seriously this year and implementing that the economy is doing. Okay, that's an answer.
Okay, so that is something we're taking forward, which is very good.
As democracy and campaigns officer, and I'm going to refer back to my speech a little bit. We don't know what you guys want until you can tell us. It's about you guys being wow. I mean, we're here really as a gateway to the university and social life, and we're here to basically help you out and make these things happen. But I can't read minds of 24,000 students, that's ridiculous. I really want to campaign on these issues. I understand how important they really are, and I think that any issue that students have is an issue of mine. So what I would suggest is, if you do have an issue, please come and speak to us, please go to the forums, please bring it up with me, and we're more than willing to help, because that's what we're here to do, and that's how we're having council.
Okay, there is just one final question at the back of the room. You may need to come forward for us to be able to hear you, unfortunately.
I'm not worried about the microphone.
That's a bad sign.
A recent piece was brought up in one of the art and design forums to do with the no hidden fees aspect of some of the design courses. How much interaction does the union have with such implementation and marketing that the university initiates in terms of making sure that it's smooth in terms of information and communication, and that it isn't somewhat confusing or basically to make sure it's clear and that it's not actually confusing people when they're initially reading it, so they're coming towards commentary, and then once they're here, then finding out something isn't covered. How much connection does the university and the union have on such issues?
Okay, thank you.
You got to turn it on.
Hi David, I know you have an issue brought up with me already about the student fees. And as a faculty chair, I'm just going to put with me and then moving on to the guys here. As a faculty chair, just so you know, I have taken this further. I have spoken to Adrian, the rep coordinator, and she has urged me to pass it forward to the deans of our faculty, so I'm doing at the moment, just so you know, and that will be back actually, so pass it on.
Yeah, and just to add, obviously my role is communication. In terms of university communication generally, it's not something that we do control, but I'm developing a relationship, a strong relationship with the university communications team. I regularly meet with the director, Erica, once a month, and if any of you have general issues about communication from the university or the student union, you come and speak to me, because the biggest thing for me is the reason I ran, because if you don't know something, how are you going to get involved, how are you going to do it? We talk about all the great opportunities available to you through the university and through the student union, and as me, it's about you getting to know. So communication is being reviewed at the moment for us, and I can advise the university on how they communicate as well. But yeah, just come to me and talk to me about it anytime in the office. Okay?
Thank you.
Can I just say that any issues that is raised in your forums are being loved? That's why we have the unity plan in every forum. So all the issues that are being raised are limited. So we will review them in the next forum meeting. So if they are not being settled, they are in process. So we communicate on how far we come with it as well. Yeah. Thank you.
I have to give you a comment to that question, because this is the correct process. Someone's raised an issue, something that they're really annoyed about, and they're bringing it to the forums, they're bringing it through their reps, and it's coming to us and it's being dealt with instantly. So this is proof of how the system works, and it does work. And Val, who is one of our trustees, and also a governor, a board of governors, and the member of staff will see that this system does work. So please follow what the guys just learned. If you do have any problems, follow through our systems, and we'll try our best to get it sorted.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to move on. Obviously, if any of you got further questions, you'll be able to catch all of your reps later after this meeting, or as you know, there's many ways of getting in touch with them and raising issues. So please do keep raising issues, keep pushing. Quite often you push in the same way the academic staff want to push, so you might get some of us behind you as well with some of the things that you want to do. Let's keep pushing for change, let's keep making things happen. So thank you very much for all those questions. We've got slightly changed the order of the agenda now, and Ryan's going to talk to us briefly about the process for the next set of elections before we move on to the formal motions for the meeting.
Stop it. Okay, so these aren't the big elections, these aren't elections for the sabbatical officer positions. They happen in March next year. But we do have some spaces left on council, and this is your opportunity to hold your executive to account on a monthly basis when we have our monthly council meetings. It's not a lot of work, but it gives you full representation, helps you represent you and all of your friends. The positions we have are on the next one, aren't they? We've got, I'll start from the bottom up actually, we've got one part-time counsellor, so if you're a part-time student you can stand for that. One caring and responsibilities counsellor, sorry, can't talk. So if you care for any disabled family or you have children, you can stand for that position. Ethnic and cultural counsellor, one LGBT counsellor, one postgraduate counsellor, and 5 standard counsellors who are part of the block of 20, so they don't have a particular remit, they just hold us to account and come up with ideas and get involved. Okay. And there's a wing here. There's 6 NUS delegate places. As an NUS delegate, you will go to the national conference, which is usually held, correct me if I'm wrong, Dom, in April. NUS conference is where all the policy is made for NUS, which obviously we're affiliated to. I went last year. It's also where people like Dom are elected, so they're a bit of a bigger deal than me, which I don't like. So you get the national executive are elected on there, so it is really important for you guys to be on that. And what we try and do is not just let our executive go, we try and get everyday students like yourselves, give you the opportunity to be elected as an NUS delegate, so you can also have that experience. So nominations open straight after this meeting at 3 o'clock today. You can find the nomination form online at www.kusu.org if you'd like to stand for any of those positions. If you have any questions about them, just come and see me at the end or any one of the executive, and they'll tell you about what you'll be doing as a councillor or as an NUS delegate. I'm not going to ask any questions for now. If you do have any questions, please just come and speak to us. But again, referring back to our speech, you are all leaders. You're leaders of your friends and you're leaders of yourselves and your future and your education. So please run in the elections. We need you to stand. Thank you.
Okay folks, as you can see we've got some slight technical issues at the moment. While they're being resolved, I will explain to you how the motions work, and just to stress again, this is your rules of your organisation for how these things work, okay? So, with all motions, there will be a proposer who will speak for 2 minutes in favour of the motion. We then go through a series of people, if they want to, speaking for and against, and each of those people has 2 minutes. So there will be a total of 6 speeches. We'll start with 1 for, then there'll be 1 against, then 1 for, then 1 against. That number right? Then 1 for, then against. And then the person who proposed will be given 1 minute to summarise at the end. And that summary should not include any new information. It should just be a summary of what's been said so far. So what will happen with the motions when we get them up so you can see them is each of them already has somebody to propose them. After they've been proposed, we will ask people from the floor to put their hands up if they want to speak against. Okay, then you can have up to 3 speeches against, up to 3 speeches for. I will be timing those quite strictly for 2 minutes each and stopping you at 2 minutes. So try and keep your points short, please. Okay? If there isn't anybody else who wants to speak for or against, we'll move straight to the summary and straight to the vote. Okay? Again, as chair, I have the discretion to decide if we need to count a vote or not. If it's obviously overwhelming, I won't bother. If it does look even remotely like it might be close, I will do a count. And when I'm doing a count, I will need you to keep your hands in the air very clearly so that the staff can count. So you're going to have to do that for a little while before I get heartache, okay? And not take your hands down until I tell you to. So we've got 4 motions today, which I hope we're going to be able to show you in a minute. Are we back up? Okay, yeah.
The immigration. Okay, we'll crack on quickly. Okay, first of all, does anyone in here know already about the government's plans for the new immigration bill? Okay, raise a hand just so I know I'm working with. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, so basically, again, I know I'm referring back to my speech, but this is why I said my speech. We need to start realising what's going on in the world around us. We need to realise that we are the leaders of the future. And this motion is about Coventry as a students' union and as a student body saying no to the government's planned immigration bill. So to start off with the union notes, that the UK government is attempting to pass an immigration bill that will have a large impact on our international students. Coventry University currently has approximately 6,500 international students. International students provide an important cultural and economic benefit to our universities and our society. It's estimated that they contribute 7.9 billion to the UK economy each year. Research from the University of Sheffield showed that international students in Sheffield make a net contribution of over 120 million to the city of Sheffield alone. 52% of recently surveyed international students already feel unwelcome to the UK because of the government's recent policies. NUS has already gathered 2,631, that was last week, so I'm sure it's gone up, signatures on its NHS petition, and have had students send 125 letters to MPs. So this union believes these changes proposed in the immigration bill will impact international students more than any others. They make up 75% of those subject to visa controls. From that group, they're already the most heavily regulated, monitored, and pay the most in the UK economy for the duration of their stay. Further monitoring and regulation, as proposed, is unnecessary, will cost more than it benefits, and will unfairly target a group already following all the rules. Now, with the NHS, it's another unfair tax on international students. The government are trying to charge international students to use the NHS, who already contribute 7.9 billion to the UK economy, and international students make up less than 1% of the UK population, but contribute an amount almost 7% of the total NHS budget. Also, in this bill, private landlords are actually being made to check that international students are able to stay in the country. What this means in reality is that some landlords won't bother because it's hassle for them, so they will turn international students away rather than go through the process. Private landlords are not the UK's border agency, and this is discriminating and it's wrong. So this union resolves for CUSU to support NUS for the interests of international students against the immigration bill, to promote the NUS petitions and encourage all students to write to their local MPs and write to their respective embassies, and to meet with a local Coventry MP and raise our concerns and encourage them to amend and campaign against the immigration bill. What I do want from this is everybody to be on board with this, because this is such a huge issue, and often we do this year in, year out, and students just agree to it and put their hands up and say, yeah, we'll pass this motion, but then we don't do anything. If we do this, we need to kick up a fuss about this, we need to stand strong with NUS, and we need to show unity for our international students. Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion? No? Okay. In that case, we move straight to a vote?
Summation.
Oh, right, okay. We need to have a summation before we move to a vote, so I'll pass back to Ryan for 1 minute.
Leave me alone. I don't think I really need to summarise. I mean, it's discriminating for our international students. Landlords aren't the UK border agency. Charging them to use the NHS when they already pay almost 3 times the fees that we pay already is an absolute joke. It's absurd. Considering the amount they put into the economy, I think we'd be stupid not to pass this, and I hope everyone does get on board, and I hope everyone does make a fuss, because I have a lot of international friends myself, and to think that if this happened a few years ago, they're not they might not be at this campus because of this immigration bill is really upsetting and it is really wrong.
Those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands now. Can you put your hands down, please? Can anybody against the motion, please raise their hands now? Wow. Okay, so as chair, I will be going to count and the motion is passed with an overwhelming support.
On their website condemning the song Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke, describing it as deeply offensive and dangerous. There's currently around 20 student unions that have also banned this song, but I just want to say that I think we should act as our own body and it should be about what Coventry feels and what Coventry thinks, and if people don't want to vote, don't vote just because other unions have voted it, vote because you think that it shouldn't be played on the university premises. Also, I'd like to note that the university has a zero-tolerance attitude to sexual harassment. So when thinking about what we've already said as a uni, then just think about what the lyrics may or may not say to you. And that Coventry University also has a dignity and... Excuse me, I'm speaking. That's really rude. Yeah, it's not funny. It's a serious matter, sexual harassment and feeling inferior. Has a dignity and respect policy which states Coventry University is committed to providing an environment where all are treated with dignity and respect, which is a place free from bullying and any form of harassment, discrimination or victimisation, and where no such actions are tolerated. The union also believes that music can have powerful influences within the society we live in. The song Blurred Lines not only justifies and glorifies rape, but also promotes women as objects who can be used for personal gratification, which is damaging to both men and women. And that as an academic institution, it is critical we give a strong message that our university promotes equality, that a person can succeed based upon their own unique abilities without needing to use their body as a tool. Finally, there's no blurred lines around consent, and promoting rape is simply not acceptable in any circumstance.
Sorry, Kirsty, you just need to read out the resolution.
Sorry everybody, I just forgot to read the last part. The CUSU should join NUS and other unions by banning blurred lines from being played in Hush immediately to make an example of all songs and artists who think this kind of language, attitude and culture is acceptable. And the ASM will mandate the Executive Committee to encourage the university to stop playing this song in campus, including other buildings such as the Sports Centre.
Thank you, sorry. Would anybody like to speak against the resolution? I think the guy in blue and black had his hand up first earlier. Somebody got a microphone? So just wait a second, we'll get a microphone to you. I will be timing you to 2 minutes.
I'm not anything worse. I'll say again, because in the day, it's our right to listen to what everyone listens to. I understand it might find it offensive, I'm apologising for that. But there's a they're offensive, there are songs that discriminate against people. You're not going to go around like every single song that's out there because they're taking forever. So it's a ridiculous idea, in my opinion. Not on the point, how are you personally going to stop me and other people from listening to that song if you want to listen to it?
Individuals listening to what they want. The resolution is very clearly to stop it being played in university buildings. So we need to be clear about what the resolution is.
If I sit in a communal area, it's a bit on a speaker system, that's my own personal device still, and that's me letting everyone else listen.
So what we're voting on is the resolution. The resolution doesn't say anything about stopping individuals playing, yeah? So let's be clear on what we're voting on as a matter of okay? Would anybody like to speak in support of proposal? Okay. Can I have the lady at the front here, please? Can we get a microphone?
My name is Firstly, I'd like to say, my name is Abigail Stevens, and I'm here on behalf of Source Media, but my views don't reflect Source Media. Basically, as a woman, as a strong, powerful, individual woman, I don't feel like I should have to listen to these words. And there are many people who are victims of sexual abuse, and there is no need to force them to be triggered by this kind of music. I accept there is music in society that is against many different types of people, but why should we have to listen to this in a space where people are trying to enjoy themselves? Like, it's just not on. Why would you support that? Why would anyone be against feminism?
I'm sorry, we are applying universal rules which are to listen with dignity to anybody's point of view. If people are not doing that, I will remove them from the room. Let's be clear. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak against the motion? There's a lady on the back row, yes?
My name is Sam. So you can have some quiet and Sam, please. Thank you. My name is Sam, and ever since I saw this on the agenda, I've been filled with a feeling of just absolute horror. I have actually canvassed the opinion of many students about this. The figures have come out that 86% are strongly against this motion being passed. The other 14% couldn't care less and think it's a ridiculous waste of the union's time. If the union, or if it wants to come to the forum about sexual harassment, rape, sexual assault, then it should be done in a more controlled environment and more informative environment than being against one song. It is as simple as that. Where are we going to draw the line? You ban this song, what song's going to be next? This is almost, and just an exaggeration, goes down the road to a totalitarian route of banning what songs that people can't afford it. You are trivialising what is a very, very serious issue. We have been looking at songs. The song Summer Loving from Greece has the line, "Did she put up a fight?" That is considered one of the world's most loved and renowned musicals. You have Smack That by Avon. You have the song Okay, which is about prostitution. You have the 80, which is about prostitution and heroin addiction. You are talking about one song that may or may not trivialise women. He has come out publicly and said the song is about his wife, who he's been with for 20 years. She is his good girl. His wife encouraged him to do the explicit video. He didn't want to do it. She said it was a good idea. Her idea. I am a strong woman who makes my own choices. I'm an advocate for women, and I think this is a ridiculous idea.
Wow. Basically, I second this motion not because I have any issues with the song. I seriously quite like the song. The song has a good catchy tune. The reason that I second this motion is to support one of our students, and in fact, quite a few of our students have a problem with this song. I don't think it's about banning lots and lots of songs. I think it's about using this as an example to stamp out the lad culture that is within our campus at the moment, and it's about saying no to all these things. No, it isn't going to make a huge difference, it isn't going to stop these things from happening, but it's about Coventry making a stand and saying we don't accept this kind of behaviour. This is actually represented through this song, maybe less than other songs. Yes, I completely agree with that, and I appreciate the examples that have been given, but we're using this as an example along with other unions, along with a national governing body. Again, I want to stress, me personally, it doesn't offend me, but then again, I'm not a woman who has been in that position. I can't feel that way. And that's the reason that I'm setting the motion. That's the way I saw it, because I had the same, frankly, I had the same view as you. I had the exact same view as you when I first heard about it, and I thought it was ludicrous. I thought it was just stupid and petty. But when you think about it, for the sake of banning one song and showing unity with other student unions to stamp out this sort of culture, why not? Song's old anyway. No, on a serious note, I think we need to look at what we're actually, the message we're trying to send. Not the message that the song represents, but what we're trying to send by banning it. And that's the angle I'm coming from. Whether you agree with me or not, that's someone who has been in a neutral position, who can see both sides of the argument, neither more one nor the other. So thank you.
Okay, so if I'm the person who wishes to speak against the motion, I'll take you from this side because I've never been this side yet. Do you want from here?
Okay, the first point to be said is that men can be subject to sexual harassment just as women can. Okay? That's the first point to be said. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. Sexual harassment is wrong. Secondly, women, even women, will make themselves into sexual objects through songs. Let's just talk about Nelly Furtado, who already is a woman, and her man-eater. That's nice. Yeah, very good for man. Or Sexy Naughty Bitch Me, which is another very lovely song. Kind of kindergarten, but again, a song about women, objectifying them, making them also cool and everything like that because they can do whatever with men. The point isn't about the song. The song doesn't make a person. Medalists, and that medal in particular, is going to talk about what? Blood sacrifices, killing people. Does listening to that kind of music make you that kind of person? Just because you're listening to a song that says that, doesn't mean that your behavior is going to be like that. It's music. You have a right to listen to whatever you want to listen to. But banning the song is just going to set, it was said in the back, banning the song is just going to set a culture for banning anything that we don't like. It's banning whatever
Okay, so as I explained at the start, the process is now that the proposer makes a 1-minute summation just to pull the main arguments together, and then we'll move to a vote. So thank you.
Okay, in closing, it's not just about banning. It's not banning, it's asking respectfully that songs that can... A song that's a huge song, we're not talking about songs that aren't played, it's played everywhere, that when women come here, or men, that they feel safe. It's an environment that's primarily about academic growth. And I really want women to feel that they are academic. And I'm not speaking as a student, I'm speaking as a mother of 4 children, 1 boy and 3 girls. And I want all of my children to grow up respecting others as human beings, not as objects or animals that apparently he knows she wants it. So please, it's not about banning the song, it's just about respect around the university campus. And obviously there isn't much respect here because you all feel it's okay to talk over me because you don't agree. But if you were all speaking, I would have the respect to be quiet and listen to what you have to say, whether I agree with it or not.
On both sides, but thank you to all speakers and thank you to the hall for respecting the speakers and for mostly listening to what was being said. Okay? We need to move to a vote now. So those in favour of accepting the motion, please raise their hands and keep them in the air. Okay? Can you take your hands down? Can those against raise their hands, please? You lower your hands, please. I think that we don't need to move to account that there were more votes against than for. Anybody who has the right to challenge that decision if they want, but I think it was clear, okay? So this motion is not carried. Thank you.
Okay, so can we get that?
Okay, so there are 2 more motions we're going to talk about today. The first one is about postgraduate social learning spaces, and it's going to be proposed by Chidima.
So can you come up, Chidima, we'll get to it for you.
Hi everyone, my name is Chidima and I'm a representational welfare officer. I'm here to propose a motion that is really simple and I hope nobody goes against it. It's about social learning space for postgraduate students, which we used to have, but the university has taken it away from postgraduates and it's now become BES faculty. Okay, and the union notes that currently social learning space, such as having postgraduate lounge and computer rooms, are essential for postgraduate. And students struggle to secure computer rooms in the library and for their specific studies. The number of postgraduates in the university increase yearly. And specific postgraduate students learning space is the best practice in most universities in the country. Postgraduate students, like I said before, lost this learning space or postgraduate center this year. And the union believes that postgraduate student learning, social learning spaces will foster more group learning space for postgraduate seminars and other postgraduate activities in the university. The union also believes that postgraduate students having their own social learning spaces will reduce the struggle to secure reading spaces in the library and give room for other students to use. And also, the union believes that postgraduate students having their own spaces will give these students more sense of belonging and identity in the university and create more communities for postgraduate students in the university. So the union resolves to mandate the executive, your executive, to persuade the university to bring back these social learning spaces for postgraduate students, and that they also, postgraduate students also want these spaces to contain computer rooms, lounge, and kitchen for them. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody who would like to speak against this motion? Okay, we have a guy here. If we can get the microphone, please.
It's fine. It's not particularly against the motion, it's just the second point that the union noted, that postgraduate students struggle to find computers within the university. I'm sorry, but we all as students struggle to find computers, undergraduates alike. Are you as a union saying that undergraduates aren't as important as postgraduates? Because all the computers are there for everyone to use. It's really not a point of postgraduates need them more than we do, and if they do, then they should secure them before we do. I just feel that that's wrong as a point.
And a point of order, that wasn't actually a speech against the motion as such, yeah, so we need to note that, okay? So, is there anybody who actually wants to speak against the motion? Not against that point, which is not something that's in discussion. Okay? You're actually speaking against the motion, okay? Yeah.
My name is Tom Richardson. I'm a postgraduate at university doing product design, and I'm a year here. I've been here for 4 years, almost my 4th year, and the entire time I've been here, not once have I struggled to get a computer, not once have I struggled to find a place to sit down and do work, and not once have I needed a kitchen on campus. This is a waste of funding, this is a waste of time, the facilities should be for everyone, and not split up between graduate and postgraduate study. That's my opinion.
Speak in favour of the motion. Oh, so I thought it was you. Yeah.
I agree with the kitchen. I don't think anyone needs a kitchen on campus. You need to go home. But I think the point that we're trying to make, or the children's trying to make, is not every postgraduate student is like you, where you're happy to sit in an environment full of 18 to 21-year-olds going mental all the time. We have a lot of mature students who are postgraduates who need the space away from this sort of environment. They need an actual social learning space which isn't in a place in the hub where it is so busy. Guys, don't make me tell you off. I don't want to be a bad person. That's nice, isn't it? No, seriously, it's just about finding different needs. I think, yes, kitchen's a bit far, but it's about creating the social learning space that mature students had before. So I think if we were to change the motion, it should be not just for postgraduate students, but for mature students. So there is a place for mature students to get together, where they're not maybe in the middle of the hub where it's all going a bit mental and a bit crazy, but a place for mature students to get together, maybe have a coffee, discuss their work, and have that social learning environment that they need particular to them. It's not like undergraduates don't have any other space like Hush every Wednesday, or Hush every Friday, or Hush any other day, you know. But I think they really need that space. It is the foundation of their course, so please vote for this motion. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak against the motion? Okay, there's a lady over there who hasn't had a hand up to. Do you want to wait till you get the microphone, please?
I just to those comments. I'm doing a foundation degree. I'm 20 years old. I don't feel that I'm going mental in the hub. I feel that I take my degree every bit as seriously as someone who's doing a postgraduate degree. I went to paramedic after my course. I think if I went messing around, that I would get a job after it. So I think it's a bit. It doesn't make sense to say that just because they're doing a postgraduate degree, they're taking their degree seriously. All of us are paying an awful lot of money to be here, no matter what degree we're studying. So I don't think we should discriminate against people because of that.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak for the motion? Thank you, we're up to. Yeah.
Nora Cole, and President of the Children's Society, and also Stores Media Observer. I speak for the motion. I think I have transcended my plans and thoughts, have transcended the school environment. I even have to collect myself to come back to the learning environment. Excuse me. And so I'm trying to, I understand that yes, some of you are mature. You know, not all of you are jumping around, but there's some of you that jump around. And we need that environment to also help us to discuss with ourselves, among ourselves, in a mature environment. Some of us are parents, some of us have other issues that we could relate to with each other. And also, I'd like to, it's not like we're avoiding the next generation. We want to be part of their life, we want to get you to aspire to get to where we are. Whether you like it or not, the truth is, we need to also make you aspire to be further. Why are we ahead of you? Everyone has his own level. Everyone has his own state and level of study and all of that. But why do you aspire? Do you admire us, or do you see us as just, you know, I'm sure you understand what I mean. Yeah, I think we need that space.
Okay, thank you. Do we have time? Do we have time to speak against the motion?
Okay, I'm 30 with an undergraduate degree. Does that make me any less worthy of space that's free for people jumping around having fun because I'm doing a lesser degree? I don't think so. We've all had different life experiences, and perhaps this motion should have been about creating a space that's conducive for learning for all students, no matter what their age is or the level of degree they're doing. Everyone's experience is different, and it shouldn't be stratified on whether it's postgraduate or undergraduate. I think it's quite derogatory to say to somebody that because they're an undergraduate that they're somehow less mature. I judge people on who they are and how they present themselves to me, no matter where they come from or their age or the degree that they've done. So I reject this motion and think that we should have just a space which is for quiet, thoughtful learning instead of postgraduate.
That's all the speeches for and against done. As with the last motion, I'm going to ask Gillian, who did the proposing, to do a 1-minute summary for us.
Hi everyone, thank you for all your speeches. I'm quite impressed with this actually going. Okay, this motion is not about discrimination. I'm totally against discrimination of any sort. If I wasn't, I wouldn't contest to be a professional welfare officer. This motion is about being inclusive as our union and as our university. This is not segregated amongst undergraduate and postgraduate. I know that every undergraduate student will come up to be a postgraduate one day, or go to or come to your union or to your university and want to go to the graduate center. I want to make you know as well, graduate center has been squeezed into just 2 rooms, which is they are also doing global leaders program and your graduate center is just in 2 rooms. If you are not happy to come back to this university and have just 2 rooms containing the graduate center, or we call it the graduate center, just 2 rooms, will you have to come back to that university and be proud of it? Because one day you will be a graduate and you want to aspire to be a postgraduate student. And also, we as a university or as a union, we are all speaking for accessibility as well. We want these students to also feel part of the union. As your representation officer, this is a challenge for us. We want to include these students as part of the union as well, and for them to have that community at that stage. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to everybody who's spoken for and against the motion. And it's nice to see that there's quite a lot of emotion in the room, but we've kept it very calm. Very pleased with that, thank you. We need to move to a formal vote. The motion's behind me, and this is the exact motion we're voting on, remember. So, can those in favour of those motions please raise their hands now.
Can those against raise their hands, please? Okay. This is too close for me to call from the chair, so we're going to move to a formal vote. Can you put your hands down again? Can those for the motion put your hands up and keep them up till I tell you to put them down, please? Keep them up so you get counted. Keep your hands really up, please, so you can get counted. Only one hand each. Keep your hands up, please. Are we done? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Can you take those hands down, please? Can those who are against the motion now please raise your hands and keep them clear in the air for me?
She's the second year as well, so that makes even. Oh, brilliant. It's a lot of democracy, actually. You gotta have the votes, actually. And she's the second one. It's a tie. That's French stuff.
Are we done, Bill? Bill? Are we done?
Okay, thank you. I also need to ask people who abstained from the vote to put their hands up because we need to record those numbers as well. So if you haven't voted, you can put your hand up now.
There's as many people.
was 116, and those against the motion was 144. So the motion is not passed. Just to complete this, there were 47 abstentions. Okay? Right, so we're moving to our final motion of the day, which is going to be presented by Ronnie Collingwood. So you can just get it on the board. And this is about
why does this university need gender-neutral toilets? Many trans and non-binary people, the very idea of even doing something simple as going to the toilet is stressful. If others perceive them to be in the incorrect toilets, this can lead to staring, pointing, laughing, and even verbal or physical abuse. Even if another Lily politely points out that they think an individual is in the wrong toilet, this can create an awkward situation as an individual is left to either explain themselves or try to find another toilet. This can easily be remedied by creating gender-neutral toilets alongside gender toilets. For years, this has been pushed, and it's especially embarrassing since the old SU had a gender-neutral toilet, and the new SU doesn't. Plenty of universities in the UK and around Europe currently have them, has been shown to drastically reduce the number of hate crimes committed. If our university passes this motion, which will increase the quality of life of our most marginalised, it will demonstrate that this is truly a university that upholds and supports our diverse student body. This university has a budget for equality. This university has a budget for the protection of our most oppressed and vulnerable students. Create gender-neutral toilets. Create a safer university. This is a point about all the BDMs and the quite short-sighted. Ronnie's asked me to read the motion on her behalf, so if I can invite these on before we read the motion. This year resolves to mandate the Executive Committee to put pressure on the University to create gender-neutral toilets on campus and for University States to make clear signage that all disabled toilets are gender-neutral, and the ASM to mandate the Executive Committee to campaign about issues that students face around gender or orientation. Okay. Would anybody like to speak against this motion? I have a lady there. We can get her. Microphone, thank you.
I think you need to bear in mind we have cultural and religious beliefs as well. And there's loads of people like Muslims or strong Christians that will go into the toilet to do their just clean themselves for prayer or something, and obviously men can't be in there with them. You also need to bear in mind women don't want men to see them when they're in bathrooms, and I think it's the other way around as well. So I don't think it's a very clever idea. It's really silly.
Thank you. Can we have some quiet, please? Can I have somebody to speak for, please? It's a lady at the front, sorry.
2 important points to miss with the previous speaker. Yes, we do have a religious belief, and that's perfectly fine. As the motion states, we are not merely having purely gender-neutral toilets, we are having gender-neutral toilets alongside gender toilets. Plus, that's okay. So if you do feel particularly uncomfortable in that aspect, then you can use a particular gender toilet instead. That's fine. Because obviously I understand that it's not just for religious grounds, but some people do particularly feel comfortable sharing a toilet with the opposite sex. That's fair enough. Some people have some very specific reasons for that, particularly religious reasons. So that's why we're not saying that we're going to just have gender neutral. We
like, this isn't really to create a safe place for people such as myself can use the toilet without fear of being harassed or attacked. And some people might find that funny, I don't know, I hope no one does, but that is the case every single time I have to use the toilet in the university. Because they don't exist. Every single time I want to use the toilet, I am showing that the potential of being harassed or attacked. I don't really want to go to it. I'd like to just go and use the toilet. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Luke, and I just want to come and to my hand real quick about why I affiliate this motion. Don't have an idea of a man and a woman sharing toilet, the potential of a woman being trapped. Toilets have locks. Women are on toilets if men can share them too. I don't think it feels very safe for a woman to use the toilet, and I know that there's a lot of that door, and I think there's a potential for crime there. I think it's also important to know that if something's not broken, don't fix it. Everyone's been getting on fine with sharing toilets. I wasn't aware of the issue that the guy mentioned before. I think there's a lot of money spent on volume through it, which is
My name is Shirley Needs, and I am a women's rep of the LGBT plus society, and I'm for this motion for these reasons. One, you can, and you still will be able to use gender toilets, so all the points put forward by the last person against the motion are completely invalid. You can still use gender toilets. We will not be taking them away, we just want gender neutral toilets. Gender neutral toilets will be more economical because we'll be able to remove urinals, and since they'll be more likely to convert with the regular toilets, we have to save money. And since both genders will be able to use these toilets, the gender binary people who identify in this group, and of course people who don't identify alongside these people who are binary, women and men. If you're a trans student, this will be very important to you, but also for everyone in this room, it would be important to you because you never know who to sit next to. If you have any respect or sympathy for these people, then you should acknowledge that they deserve the same rights as you. Thank you very much for listening.
Is there anything else you wish to speak against the motion? I can see a hand back on that side, so I can't see whose hand it is.
Surely you just drag people up into the toilet, so if we're going to get bullied, there's going to be someone there. But surely you just drag people, I don't know, it just seems to me a little bit of confidence. Because I understand where people are coming from, and it's really sad that you guys get picked on and stuff, but surely that will just make it easier for people to attack you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm now going to invite Ronnie to make the final summation because you've had all the presentations and it's all that allowed on this matter. Can we have some quiet, please?
Okay, so in conclusion, this place desperately needs gender neutral toilets, and sorry, I've been quite emotional because since people actually think that the system isn't broken, not to fix it after I actually said hate crimes are actually being committed actually shows that the system is clearly quite broken. And although gender-neutral toilets won't fix all the transphobia on campus, it's a step in the right direction. We can't change attitudes so quickly, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. So I want you to vote on this motion, please. Okay, so thank you very much for all the speakers again, and for listening to those speakers. We now need to move to the formal vote on the motion. So you can see the motion behind me. Sorry, do you have a point of order?
Do you mean whoever goes to toilets men? So will there just be a few toilets for that? Because I think it's really horrible if they feel like that. So I don't want not vote against it, I don't want go to toilet men. So I think you're saying there'd be a few toilets around campus that designated for gender needs again.
I think my understanding of the motion is for the student union to talk into the university around the issue of gender neutral toilets and getting some sort of provision in this area. Yeah. I'm not sure the motion is specific in any way about numbers of any of these things or anything. It's about raising this as an issue where there will be some provision. Okay? And I think that's what the wording of the motion says. Yeah. And it is the specific one that is about making it clear on the disabled toilets that there are gender neutral and not males or females, which are already said. Okay? So, let's be part of these. So, this is the wording of the motion that we're voting on. Okay? Can I ask those in favour of the motion, please, to raise their hands now? Okay, put your hands down, please. Can I ask those against to raise their hands? Okay. I think this is another case where it's clear on the numbers, and I think this motion has been carried. So, can I just thank again everybody who's proposed the motion and everybody who's spoken for and against the motion. I mentioned at the start of the meeting that the National Union of Students National Committee are very excited about our meetings because we get a lot of students to our meetings, we get a lot of students talking to our meetings, we get a lot of students caring about things. And that is not the national picture of your students' unions. I'm very pleased to be part of the students' union where people do care about things and are trying to change things. Okay? I'm going to hand over to our final speaker today, who is from the National Union of Students. This is Don Anderson, who is the NUS Vice President for Society and Citizenship. So, don't run away. So, can you please welcome Don from the NUS? Thank you.
You must have heard about my speaking style. This is what lectures. Okay, so first of all, I want to start by saying a massive thank you to Ryan for putting me at the very end of the audience. I think that is excellent. So a big round of applause. Okay, it's been great to be here today. When I was told that I would be speaking at Carl NCU for their ASM, I expected to go into a room and see 50 people, 50 keynotes, 50 people who care too much about their student union. But I walked in and I see hundreds of you staring back at me, and it's terrifying. So you should all be pretty proud. You are probably one of the biggest student meetings that happens in all the student unions up and down the country. So give yourself a bit of a Right, so last time I was at Coventry Uni, I was playing for Derby Braves, beating the Coventry Jets American football team. So if there are any Jets in here, cool. Yeah. I'm going to go beat it up afterwards because some of them look like they're playing the line, so that's not cool. But I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about sort of like where I've come from and like how I got to where I am today and sort of how it's pretty much possible for anyone. Because, like a speaker I heard earlier, I came into university quite late. I was 23, and I had a daughter. I still have. Never left on the train. That would have been awkward. But yeah, so like there was something about having a child that really made university seem a little bit harder. And I think that, like, you know, the traditional undergraduate is someone who is aged 18 to 21, and in this country they tend to be from a certain ethnic background. They also tend to be, on the whole, there's quite an even sort of gender split. But I think we all could really use at times to take into account what things are like for other people. For people who don't quite have it as easy as us, for people who have it a lot easier than us as well. So, you know, them locked down at Eton, that's, you know, I wouldn't mind that, that'd be alright, wouldn't it? Imagine having a butler at school, wow, that's sick. But I just think that, like, it's important to think about Coventry as something that is broader. So the University of Coventry would really benefit from looking at itself as the University for Coventry. You know, as a place that is really invested in the city of Cov, because God only knows who needs it. No, that's a joke. Sorry. I'm from Derby, it's just local banter. But no, Cov is a place that would really benefit from students. You know, if you think about how many people out there in the estates of Cov are thinking to themselves, I could never go to university. University will never be for me. I've got a kid. You know, no one in my family ever went to university. I didn't get any grades in school. Well, all of those are true of me. So, and I made okay, the University of Derby, but still, it's a thing, isn't it? I was proud to go to university, and I think that there's something about being able to go back and talk to people about your journey and about your experiences that just feels so important. So like, for me, I was kicked out of school at 15, and I didn't have a GCSE. The last exam I did before going to university was my SATs in year 9, and I got, we're doing numbers, but I don't even know, it was rubbish. It's just pointless. Just sat there at 3 o'clock, and we'll drop to 10 at the same time. Did anyone do that during the exams? No, and that's why you're in university. Good. Same. But no, it was really strange, because like, I never thought I'd ever go to uni or college. I just sort of was involved in like the same kind of stuff that a lot of young people who grow up on council estates get involved in. More time with your mates than you do like doing homework. And then you end up in what society would term a gang. In reality, it was the same people I've been friends with since I was 3, but we were apparently a gang because we all just so happened to be black. So that's how we work, isn't it? So yeah, I was involved in a gang, and we didn't really do much gang type activity. We just used to hang around and play football and be youths. I love it when people, when you read the Daily Mail and they say, oh yeah, a gang of youths. What does that mean? Like, who's a youth? Love it, but my grandma would call it a youth because she's me. But like, I've never thought that I'd ever go to uni, like never. And so then I had my daughter, I'm not a person, I was involved in the having of my daughter, and she just looked at her for the first time, and as she started growing up, and you watch them learn and you watch them grow, and I thought to myself, I need more for my life than what I've got, and I need more for her life. And that was really sobering, to realise that actually you no longer are just this single entity, this one person. You're an inspiration to someone. But the reality is that you don't have to have a child to be an inspiration to someone. All of you will have grown up somewhere. You know, statistically speaking, you all grew up somewhere. I was never a mathematician. Wherever that is, whether that is, you know, somewhere posh in Oxfordshire, whether that's back in the council estate in Derby, it doesn't really matter. You still grew up somewhere, and you still are an inspiration to someone who's currently trying to grow up where you grew up. And I think we all have such a massive responsibility to go back and reflect and be able to tell our story and make people understand that actually the road to anywhere is not always an even one. Sometimes it's going to be difficult, sometimes it's going to be scary, and sometimes it's going to be downright boring. But actually getting there is the journey there is part of the achievement. So actually Ryan's speech earlier I thought was really interesting. He talked about leadership, because I've got theories on what a leader is. So I don't know, like, you all, if I ask, who was the shouting out person earlier, the one who sounded like he was in my grandma's church? Where's that person? Oh, he's got, yeah, exactly, see what I mean? All the talk at the beginning, didn't want to hang around when he might get asked a question. Okay, so, can I ask, the chap with the beard? Yeah, okay, so what's a leader? Are you in the rugby team? No. Oh, that was a bit of a... Wow. Oh. Well, everyone knows that American footballers wear the trim ones and rugby... Anyway. I've got new Coventry Jets. So yeah, what do you think a leader is? What would you say is a leader?
Leader?
Yeah, what, you know, how would you define a leader?
Someone that like, can get everyone rallied up and someone who can get respect from other people. Like obviously you captain, stuff like that, your team, I know you're leading, they're the one that you look to for your mission.
I think that's a pretty good like societal sort of like definition of a leader, yeah? Because I just think a leader, without people following them and without people going along the journey with them, is just someone out for a walk. You are, aren't you? Like if I said, look, we're going to have a demo because I think it's ridiculous that there's a cathedral outside that's got no walls, yeah? If I said to have a demo for that and I stood there on my own, because everyone realised how ridiculous that saying is, but if I walked there on my own, I'd just be a person standing on my own. So I would be able to claim to be a leader because I'm leading a campaign. If you don't bring anyone with you, what's the point? You might as well just go and have a picnic. But also, like, my theory in leadership is that a real leader is not actually measured on how many followers you have. So, by the way, you should have me on Twitter. It's a thing. And I'm also excellent at it. But if you think about, I think a real leader should be measured on how many leaders they've created. So if you look at some of the greatest leaders of all time, I'm not going to name them because that gets controversial quick. You can't even say Obama anymore since he started with his NSA stuff, like, you can't do it. But like, there are leaders out there who have created movements, have made it so that people wanted to carry on. So actually, think about Martin Luther King. Like, he didn't just stand up there, he's known for his speech. But he's someone who after that, after he'd been killed, he was someone who influenced people from beyond the grave to carry on the fight for civil rights. And I think that's massive. And like, I like to think that, you know, once Ryan and the team are gone, their fight will carry on with you. They will be looking to do exactly the same stuff. And it will carry on with the students that they've influenced. And that's a real leader, and that's what leadership is about. Now imagine if you could show that leadership in your local community here. Imagine if you went out into Coventry, and some of you will be the first students that they've met. And you know, we all think of students, when I was growing up, I thought of all students as those people who go to Oxford or Warwick. Sorry, I just swore, sorry. But no, I did. That's what I thought students were like. All very sort of like from a certain class, all from a certain schooling background. I never thought students could look how you lot look. Just looking around the room, this is because you're ugly, in it? No, not really. No, but if you think about it, like, look at the diversity in this room. Look at the opinions. Look at all the people who define into the different liberation campaigns. I think that's amazing. And there appears to be a Dolby in my opinion. I don't know what it is. I'm scared. Is that Chucky? But like, that is what students are, and that's what university is about. And imagine if that message could get into our estates. Imagine if people realised that universities are not Warwick, Oxford, Cambridge, but they are Coventry, Derby, De Montfort. They're places where people can go in with no grades at all and come out with a PhD. And I know that there's people in this room who will be sat reflecting. I know people who are talking as well, which I think is equally excellent. You should probably do that later. It's just like common sense, isn't it? But there'll be people who will be reflecting on their own journey.